The tissue sample gleamed under the microscope light, its cellular structure pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm that had captivated Dr. Evelyn Shaw for the better part of 3 hours. 2 in the morning. The Oregon Institute of Interspecies Medicine sat silent around her, its corridors empty save for the automated hum of climate control systems and the occasional footfall of security making their rounds. She preferred these hours, the deep hours, when the living retreated and left her alone with the dead. Barber's adagio for strings played through the lab speakers, volume low, the violins climbing their familiar ascent toward sorrow. She had discovered the piece at David's funeral 17 years ago. Now it accompanied her nightly ritual of examining Krellix biology, searching for weaknesses in the species that had taken everything from her. The sample belonged to a soldier, male, approximately 215 years old by Krellix standards, which translated to late 50s in human terms. The scales showed signs of deterioration, a grayish pallor creeping through what should have been vibrant blue-green. Soul decay, the Krellix called it, a condition that affected warriors who lost their sense of purpose, their honor. Their bodies simply began shutting down, cellular by cellular, until nothing remained but ash. Evelyn had seen it before in specimens. She found it poetic, fitting. Her comm unit buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. With a sigh that felt heavier than her 52 years should warrant, she reached for the device. The screen showed an unfamiliar UN prefix, marked urgent. She almost declined the call anyway. Almost. Dr. Shaw. The voice belonged to Margaret Chen, Special Envoy for Interspecies Relations. They had met twice before. At conferences, Evelyn attended more out of professional obligation than genuine interest. I apologize for the late hour. It's early morning, technically. Evelyn kept her eyes on the microscope, watching cells divide and fail in equal measure. What can I do for you, Envoy Chen? I'm sending you a file. I need you to review it before we speak further. The silence that followed carried weight. Evelyn sat back in her chair, removing her glasses to rub the bridge of her nose where they had left red indentations. At 2 in the morning. Please. The file arrived with a soft chime. Evelyn opened it. The first image showed a Krellix male in full military regalia, standing 7 feet 2 inches tall, his scales the color of graphite streaked with darker blue that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Eyes the shade of amber, bright and fierce. A tail thick with muscle, lined with defensive spikes. The kind of specimen that had made Krellix ground forces nearly unstoppable during the war. She scrolled down. Service record. Commandant Zar Valen, 3rd Fleet Commander, enlisted at age 40, served 177 years. Citations for valor, commendations for tactical brilliance, a long list of engagements. Then she reached the section that made her hand freeze on the screen. Portland Offensive, February 2031, 12,000 civilian casualties. The violins on the audio system reached their crescendo. Evelyn's breathing had stopped entirely. She forced air into her lungs, forced herself to keep reading. David Shaw, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Marine Corps. Confirmed KIA. Direct plasma strike to convoy position. She closed her eyes, opened them. The words remained. Dr. Shaw, Chen's voice cut through the static in her mind. Are you still there? I'm here. Commandant Valen has been remanded to Earth custody as part of the reconciliation protocol. He requires a cultural mentor for his 6-month rehabilitation period. Someone with expertise in Krellix biology and human integration strategies. Your name was at the top of our list. Evelyn's laugh came out sharp, brittle. You want me to mentor the man who killed my husband. I want you to help prevent another war. The Krellix Empire is watching this program closely. If we can successfully rehabilitate even one high-ranking officer, it proves the treaty can hold. If we fail, send someone else. There is no one else with your qualifications. You've published more research on Krellix physiology than any other living scientist. You speak their language, you understand their culture. And, Chen paused, you have personal stakes, that matters. Personal stakes. Evelyn stood, pacing to the window that overlooked the dark expanse of pine forest surrounding the institute. In the distance, the lights of Portland created a dome of artificial dawn against the night sky. Somewhere in that city, David's name was carved into memorial stone alongside 11,999 others. What exactly do you think my personal stakes will contribute to this rehabilitation? Forgiveness, healing, accountability. He needs to face what he's done, not in a courtroom, not in the abstract, but through the eyes of someone he directly affected. Evelyn pressed her forehead against the cool glass. Her reflection stared back, gray, streaked brown hair pulled into a messy knot, lines around her eyes that had deepened over the past decade. She looked old, felt older. If I refuse, he'll be deported back to Krellix space. They've labeled him a traitor for surrendering his fleet before absolute victory. He'll be executed within 48 hours of arrival. Good. Chen said nothing for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried something that might have been sympathy. I'm sending you the contract. You have until 0900 to decide. I hope you make the choice that lets you sleep at night, Dr. Shaw. The call disconnected. Evelyn stood at the window for another 20 minutes, watching the sky gradually lighten from black to deep purple to the pale gray that preceded sunrise. The tissue sample on her microscope had stopped pulsing. Dead. She logged it, filed it, and began shutting down the lab equipment with methodical precision. Her phone buzzed again. Not Chen this time. Robert Martinez. The timestamp read 0530. She answered, You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Had a feeling you'd be at the lab. Rob's voice carried the gravel of a man who had smoked for 40 years before quitting cold turkey at 60. Former Marine. Former a lot of things. Currently her oldest friend and the person most likely to tell her when she was being an idiot. Got an interesting call from Margaret Chen about an hour ago. She wanted character references for you. And what did you tell her? That you're brilliant, dedicated, and haven't dealt with David's death in any meaningful way for 17 years. That you bury yourself in work studying the enemy instead of actually living. And that if she puts you in a room with a Krellix officer, I have no idea what you'll do. Evelyn smiled despite herself. Sounds about right. Don't do this, Evie. I haven't decided yet. Yes, you have. I can hear it in your voice. You're going to say yes. She didn't deny it, couldn't. He kept a letter. What? In the file Chen sent, personal effects inventory. Commandant Valen has a letter addressed to me from David. Intercepted communication from the Portland battle. He never opened it, just kept it. Rob exhaled slowly. That doesn't make him a good man. I know, but I want to know why. Why keep it? Why not destroy it with the rest of the intercepted intelligence? Because he's playing you. Because he knows exactly what that letter means, and he's using it as leverage for sympathy. Maybe he's just a man carrying ghosts. Evelyn gathered her belongings, laptop, research notes, the cold coffee she had never finished. I'm going home. I'll call Chen at 9. Evie, please think about this. I am. That's the problem. She drove home through the awakening streets of Portland, watching the city shake off sleep. Joggers, early commuters, a world that had moved on from war, that had accepted the Krellix as treaty partners, trade allies, even neighbors. 17 years. An entire generation had grown up knowing aliens as simply part of reality. Her adopted daughter Sarah had been 11 when the war ended. Now 28, working as a civil rights attorney, defending interspecies couples against discrimination. The world had healed. Evelyn had studied the wound. Her property sat 45 minutes outside the city, 40 acres of Douglas fir and cedar, a main house she had built with David 30 years ago, and a guest cottage they had planned to convert into a studio for David's retirement painting hobby. He had never gotten the chance. She parked in the gravel drive, sat in the silence after the engine died. Through the trees, she could see the cottage, its windows dark, its interior empty for the past 8 years since she had finally stopped pretending she would ever use it herself. Inside the main house, she made fresh coffee, scrambled eggs she barely tasted, and sat at the kitchen table with the contract Chen had sent. Standard terms. 6 months. The Krellix subject would live in her guest cottage, participate in daily cultural integration lessons, perform community service as assigned, and report weekly to UN oversight. Evelyn would receive a stipend, though the amount was insultingly small compared to what she currently made at the Institute. Money had never been the point. The letter from David, she wanted that letter. At 8:55, she called Chen. "I accept, but I have conditions." "Name them." "Complete access to his medical records, any physical or psychological assessments. I want to know what I'm working with." "Granted." "The letter he kept, I want it today." A pause. "It will be included with his personal effects when he arrives." "When?" 1400 hours. I'll have a transport bring him to your location. Dr. Shaw, I want to be clear. This man is dangerous. He's cooperative now, but he's killed thousands of people. Security will do a full scan of your property, install monitoring equipment, and you'll have a panic button linked directly to local law enforcement. I don't need a panic button. It's non-negotiable. Fine, anything else? Good luck, and Evelyn. Chen's voice softened almost imperceptibly. Thank you. The transport arrived exactly on time. Military precision. 3 vehicles, armored, flanked by 2 UN security officers who spent 30 minutes installing cameras, motion sensors, and the promised panic button, a small device Evelyn clipped to her belt with obvious reluctance. Commandant Zar Valen emerged from the center vehicle in restraints, wrist shackles, ankle chains, completely unnecessary given his cooperation, but protocol demanded visible security. He moved with careful dignity despite the bonds, his posture military straight, his expression neutral. Up close, he was both more and less than his file photo suggested. The scales had indeed lost their luster, fading to a sickly gray at the edges. His eyes, still amber, carried an exhaustion that went bone deep. The spikes along his tail had been clipped, likely a humiliation tactic by the Krellix Empire before his exile. He looked old, tired, dying. Their eyes met. Evelyn felt something crack in her chest, a hairline fracture she hadn't known existed. This was the face that had given orders resulting in David's death. This was the mind that had calculated civilian casualties as acceptable losses. This was the monster who had haunted her nightmares for 17 years. He looked like he was haunting his own. Dr. Shaw, his voice carried the characteristic harmonic undertone of Krellix speech, 2 frequencies layered over each other. His English was accented but precise. You were briefed on my identity. I was. Then you know what I am, what I've done. Yes. And you still accepted this assignment. Evelyn stepped closer, close enough to see the individual scales on his jaw, the way they overlapped like armor plating. Close enough to smell the sulfur scent that marked his species. I accepted because I want to understand. Why you kept a letter addressed to me from my husband. Why you surrendered when you had numerical superiority. Why you're here at all instead of letting your own people execute you. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition. Those are good questions. I have 6 months to get answers. Follow me. The security officers removed his restraints with obvious reluctance. Zar rubbed his wrists where the metal had pressed into scales, leaving faint indentations. He picked up a single duffel bag, his only possession, and followed Evelyn down the gravel path toward the cottage. She had cleaned it that morning, opened windows to air out 8 years of stillness, made up the bed with fresh linens. The furniture was sparse. Bed, desk, 2 chairs, a kitchenette David had installed but never finished. The walls were bare except for a single framed photograph on the desk. Evelyn saw Zar notice it, saw his shoulders tighten. The photo showed her David and Jake at age 14, laughing at some joke she could no longer remember. They looked happy, whole, before. Your son, Zar's voice was barely above a whisper. Jake Shaw, he wasn't in Portland. Evelyn's hand went to the desk, steadying herself. How do you know my son's name? I memorize every name in my after-action reports, every confirmed kill, every collateral casualty. Jake Shaw was not among them, but he should have been 19 when the war ended, old enough to serve. He didn't. Medical exemption, severe asthma. The lie came easily. She had told it so many times it felt like truth. The real reason that she had used every connection and pulled every string to keep her only child away from the front lines remained buried. He died 3 years ago, shuttle accident. The transport was refurbished Krellix design, engine failure at altitude. Zar set his bag down carefully. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that transcended language barriers. I am sorry for your loss. The words hit like a physical blow. Evelyn spun to face him, rage finally finding its voice. Don't you dare apologize for the one death you didn't directly cause. You don't get to be sorry about Jake. You don't get that grief. It's not yours. He met her eyes, didn't look away, didn't make excuses. You're right, I don't have the right, but I am sorry nonetheless. She wanted to scream at him, wanted to claw at those dying scales until she drew blood, until she made him hurt the way she hurt. Instead, she turned the photograph face down on the desk, the same gesture he had been about to make before she interrupted. Ground rules, you stay in this cottage. I'll bring breakfast at 0700. We'll work from 0800 to 1200 on cultural integration, language refinement, human social norms. Lunch is on your own. There's a kitchenette. I'll stock it weekly. Afternoons, you'll do community service, gardening, property maintenance, whatever I assign. Evenings are yours, questions. Why did you turn the photograph down? Of all the things he could have asked, Evelyn's throat tightened. Because I can't stand the way you looked at it, like you had the right to mourn them too. I don't have the right, but I do mourn, every day, every name. He moved to the window, staring out at the forest beyond. You want to know why I kept your husband's letter, I'll tell you. Because he wrote it knowing he was going to die, knowing I was going to kill him. And he spent his last words telling you to live, not to hate, to find happiness again. I kept it because I couldn't destroy the only pure thing that came out of Portland, even if I never intended to deliver it. Evelyn felt tears threaten, refused them. Where is it? He reached into his duffel, pulled out a sealed envelope. The paper was yellowed, aged. The handwriting on the front was David's, neat and precise. Her name, nothing more. Zar held it out. Their fingers brushed as she took it. His scales were warm. She hadn't expected that. I'll leave you to read it alone. He started for the door. Zar, his first name felt strange on her tongue. He stopped. Why did you surrender your fleet? He turned, silhouetted against the doorway. Because I realized I was following orders that would kill a species capable of writing letters like that in their final moments. And I couldn't be that man anymore, even if it meant becoming a traitor. He left, the door closed softly. Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed, the letter in her hands. It took her 10 minutes to find the courage to open it. David's handwriting filled a single page, written in the cramped confines of a military field position, probably scrawled during a brief lull in the fighting. My dearest Evelyn, if you're reading this, I didn't make it home. I'm not afraid. I want you to know that. Death doesn't scare me half as much as the thought of you spending the rest of your life trapped in grief. We had 18 years, 18 good years. That's more than most people get of real happiness. I want you to remember the good parts. The way you laugh when you're surprised. The way you hum when you're concentrating. The way you look at the stars and try to name every constellation even though you always mix them up. I'm grateful. For you, for Jake, for every ordinary moment that felt extraordinary because I got to share it with you. But now I need you to promise me something. Don't spend your life hating the people who killed me. That's not living. That's dying slowly. I need you to find something that makes you feel alive again. Maybe it's work. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's someone new. I don't care what it is. Just promise me you won't become a ghost haunting our memories. The world will need people like you after this war ends. People who choose to heal instead of hurt. Be that person for me. I love you. I have always loved you. I will love you in whatever comes after this. Always yours. David. She read it 3 times, then a 4th. By the 5th reading, tears had blurred the ink. He had known. Somehow, David had known exactly what she would become. A ghost. A woman who studied death instead of embracing life. Who spent 17 years in a laboratory analyzing the biology of her enemies instead of moving forward. The sun set while she sat there. When full dark had fallen, she finally stood, legs stiff from stillness. The cottage windows glowed with soft light. Through the glass, she could see Zar sitting at the desk, reading. One of the books she had left for him. She had chosen them carefully, all quiet on the Western Front. The things they carried. Stories of soldiers grappling with what they had done. She should go back to the main house, should eat something, should sleep. Instead, she found herself walking to the cottage, knocking softly. Zar opened the door immediately, as if he had been expecting her, or hoping. I read it. Her voice sounded raw to her own ears. He stopped himself. Would you like to come in? She shouldn't. It violated every boundary she had set, but she nodded. The cottage felt smaller with him in it. He was too large for the human-scale furniture, but he had adapted, sitting carefully in one of the chairs in a way that kept his tail from knocking things over. The book lay open on the desk. He had made it halfway through all quiet. What do you think? She gestured to the book. Paul Baumer says he is 20 years old and knows nothing but despair. I am 217. I know nothing but war. He closed the book gently, as if it were fragile. Your husband, in the letter, he loved you very much. He did. Do you think you loved him the same way? The question caught her off guard. Most people assumed, never asked. I don't know, I cared for him deeply, respected him, enjoyed his company. But passion, the kind of love that consumes, I'm not sure I ever felt that. Maybe I'm not capable of it. Or maybe you never found the person who could ignite it. She met his eyes. In the lamplight, the amber seemed to glow from within. Did you ever have that? No, Krellix marriages are arranged. Strategic alliances between families. I was bonded at age 60 to a female of appropriate status. We produced 3 offspring as required. I respected her. But love? He made a gesture with his hand, a Krellix equivalent of a shrug. That is a human concept, or so I believed. Believed, past tense. He stood, moved to the window. His reflection overlapped with hers in the glass. Your husband's letter. The way he wrote about ordinary moments becoming extraordinary. I think perhaps I was wrong. That is love, and I never had it. Evelyn found herself standing beside him, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. Krellix ran several degrees warmer than humans. Why did you really keep the letter, Zar? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. Because it was the only proof I had ever seen that something beautiful could exist in the middle of horror. I needed to know that was possible, even if I could never experience it myself. She should leave, should maintain professional distance, should remember that this man was responsible for David's death, for Jake losing a father, for her 17 years of grief. But David's letter had asked her to live, to find something that made her feel alive. Standing this close to Zar, feeling the warmth of him, seeing the haunted depths in his eyes, she felt something stir. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something. A crack in the wall she had built around herself. I should go, it's late. He nodded but didn't move. Dr. Shaw, Evelyn, thank you for accepting this assignment, for reading the letter, for not yet deciding you hate me beyond redemption. I haven't decided anything yet. Ask me again in 6 months. I may not have 6 months. The words stopped her at the door. What does that mean? He pulled aside the collar of his shirt, revealing scales along his neck. They were gray, cracking, flaking away to expose raw flesh beneath. Soul decay, advanced stage. I have perhaps 4 months, maybe less. There are treatments. Dr. Nyla Tesor specializes in. I know, she examined me. The only treatment is finding new purpose, new honor. I am a war criminal on a planet I helped devastate. There is no honor left for me. Evelyn stared at the decaying flesh, the visible evidence of his dying. Part of her, the part that had spent 17 years hating, felt satisfied. Justice. He would die slowly, painfully, fully aware of his approaching end. But another part, the part that had loved David, that had raised Jake, that had chosen medicine as a profession because she wanted to heal, not harm, that part hurt for him. Good night, Zar. Good night, Evelyn. She walked back to the main house under a sky crowded with stars. David had taught her the constellations once. She had forgotten most of them, but tonight she tried to remember. Orion, Cassiopeia, the Big Dipper. Small, ordinary moments, becoming extraordinary. She made it halfway to the house before she started crying. Not for David, not for Jake, but for herself. For 17 years of existing instead of living. For choosing hate as armor against feeling anything else. And maybe, just a little, for a dying Krellix warrior who had kept a love letter, because he needed proof that beauty could exist alongside horror. The first week passed in careful routine. Breakfast at 7 delivered to the cottage. Cultural lessons from 8 to noon. Lunch alone. Afternoons, Zar worked in the garden, clearing overgrowth, repairing fence lines, his movements slow but precise. Evenings, she watched from the main house windows as he read or sat in silence on the cottage porch, staring into the forest. They maintained polite distance, professional courtesy. She called him Commandant. He called her Dr. Shaw. The walls between them remained firmly in place. On day 9, she found him in the garden building something from river stones. She had walked down to deliver his assignment for the afternoon and found him crouched among the vegetables, carefully stacking rocks into a cairn. What is this? He didn't look up. A Krellix morning ritual. We build monuments to the dead, 1 stone for each soul we failed to protect. She counted, 12 stones so far. 12,000 more lay in a pile beside him. You're going to build a cairn for every person who died in Portland. Yes, it will take months. I may not finish before. He didn't complete the sentence. didn't need to. Evelyn watched him work. His hands, massive and clawed, handled each stone with unexpected gentleness, placing them, balancing them. 12, 13, 14. David would have been 43rd. You said that. When you were fevered in the medical report, you said he was the 43rd confirmed kill in your sector. Zar's hands stilled. You read my medical reports. All of them part of my assignment. She crouched beside him, close enough to see the individual scales, the way they caught afternoon light and split it into fractured rainbows. Did you really remember every face? Every one I saw directly. Many I didn't, but I memorized the casualty lists. Every name, every age, every notation about family members also killed. It seemed the least I could do. That's not honor, that's torture. Perhaps they're the same thing. She picked up a stone, smooth, river-worn, the weight of it fit perfectly in her palm. Show me how. He looked at her then, really looked, surprise in those amber eyes. Why? Because if you're going to build a monument to my husband, I should help. They worked in silence. 15, 16, 20. The cairn grew slowly, each stone requiring careful placement to maintain balance. Zar's hands guided hers at first, showing her the technique. Then she found her own rhythm. 30, 40, 43. She placed that stone with particular care. David, who had loved ordinary moments, who had asked her to live. Tell me about him. Zar's voice was soft. Your husband, if you wish. She sat back, brushing dirt from her hands. He was kind, patient. He laughed easily, made terrible jokes, burned everything he tried to cook. He loved historical documentaries and terrible science fiction movies. He wanted to paint after retirement, watercolors. He never got the chance. What would he think of this, of you helping me build a memorial? Evelyn pulled David's letter from her pocket. She had been carrying it since that first night. Read it every morning, every night. He would say, I'm finally keeping my promise to live. They built until sunset. 147 stones. 11,853 to go. That night, Evelyn made dinner for two for the first time in years. Nothing elaborate. Pasta, salad, garlic bread. She brought it to the cottage on a tray, knocked. Zar opened the door, saw the food, and something in his expression softened in a way she hadn't seen before. You don't have to. I know, but I made too much, and you should eat something other than protein bars and instant noodles. He stepped aside, let her in. They ate at the small table, not speaking much. The silence felt different than before, less hostile, more companionable. This is good, Zar ate slowly, savoring. I haven't had a home-cooked meal in, he paused. Ever, I think, military rations, base cafeterias, formal state dinners, but never this. Someone cooking because they wanted to share a meal. Don't read too much into it. I needed to eat anyway. But they both knew that was a lie. After dinner, she started to leave, stopped at the door. Tomorrow, after cultural lessons, I want you to tell me about the Portland offensive, your perspective, what you were thinking, what orders you received, all of it. That will be painful, for both of us. I know, but I need to understand. Not forgive, not yet, maybe not ever, but understand. He nodded. Then I will tell you everything. Week 2, week 3. The routine continued, but the spaces between them grew smaller. She stopped delivering breakfast to the cottage, started having coffee together in the main house kitchen. He told her about Portland, about receiving orders to break human resistance by any means necessary, about calculating that civilian casualties would demoralize military forces, about following those orders because he had been conditioned since age 40 to never question command. She told him about David's death, about receiving notification, about Jake's anger and grief, about how they had both blamed themselves for surviving when David didn't. The cairn grew, 500 stones, 1,000, 2,000. On day 21, Evelyn found Zar collapsed in the garden. She ran to him, turned him over. His scales were ash-gray now, cracking across his chest, his neck. The soul decay spreading faster than Dr. Nyla had predicted. "I'm calling an ambulance." "No," he grabbed her wrist. Not hard, pleading. "No hospitals, let me die here in the garden among the stones." "I won't let you die." "You can't stop it." She pressed her comm unit. "Dr. Nyla, emergency, I'm sending coordinates." The Krellix physician arrived within 30 minutes, her own scales the deep green of healthy Krellix physiology. She scanned Zar, her expression growing grave. 4 weeks, perhaps less, the bonding therapy I mentioned. "What bonding therapy?" Evelyn demanded. Nyla glanced between them. Krellix biology responds to emotional connection, oxytocin production. Physical and emotional intimacy can slow soul decay. In some cases, reverse it. Interspecies bonding has shown particularly strong results. The biological novelty seems to stimulate regeneration. Evelyn stared at her. "You're saying he needs to form an emotional attachment to survive." "More than attachment, bond, deep connection, the kind that produces sustained biochemical changes." "With a human." "With you specifically. His system has already begun adapting to your pheromone signature. The proximity, the shared meals, the collaborative work on the memorial, it's triggering response pathways. If you were too," Nyla stopped. "Forgive me, I'm overstepping." Evelyn looked at Zar, unconscious, dying, the man who had killed her husband, who had kept David's letter, who was building a monument to his own guilt, who looked at her sometimes like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to existence. "Get him inside. The cottage. I'll monitor him tonight." Nyla helped her move him to the bed, set up IV fluids, left medication and monitoring equipment. "If his condition worsens, call me immediately." "But Evelyn," she touched Evelyn's shoulder, "the best medicine isn't in that IV bag. It's whether you can find it in yourself to see him as more than the man who took David from you." After Nyla left, Evelyn sat beside the bed. Zar's breathing was shallow, labored. She put her hand on his chest, feeling the heat of him, the way his hearts beat in syncopated rhythm, the dual pulse unique to Krellix physiology. "You don't get to die," she spoke to his unconscious form. "Not yet. I haven't decided if I forgive you. You don't get to escape before I figure that out." His eyes opened, amber fading. "Evelyn." "I'm here." "Why?" "Because David asked me to live, and somehow, keeping you alive feels like honoring that." His hand found hers, scales against skin, warm, real. "I don't deserve." "Shut up. You don't get to decide what you deserve. I do. And right now, I'm deciding you deserve to survive long enough for me to figure out what the hell I'm feeling." Something that might have been a smile crossed his face. "What are you feeling?" She didn't answer. Couldn't, because the truth was complicated and terrifying and completely inappropriate given everything between them. But she didn't let go of his hand. For 3 days, she stayed in the cottage, monitoring, administering medication, helping him bathe when he was strong enough to sit up, the intimacy of it strange and charged and undeniable. She saw every scar, every old wound, the burns from plasma weapons, the lacerations from close combat, the evidence of 177 years of war carved into his body. And he saw her, really saw her, the way she hummed unconsciously when concentrating, the way she chewed her lower lip when worried, The way she touched his scales with increasing confidence, medical examination, transforming into something else. On the fourth day, he was strong enough to walk. She helped him outside into the garden, to the memorial cairn. 5,000 stones. She had continued building while he recovered. 7,000 to go. He picked up a stone, added it to the pile. She did the same. They built together, until sunset painted the sky in shades of amber that matched his eyes. Evelyn, he set down a stone, turned to face her fully. I need to tell you something. Tell me. I'm falling in love with you. I know I have no right. I know what I am, what I've done, but I needed you to know. Before, he gestured vaguely at himself, at the decay still visible on his scales despite improvement. Before I run out of time. She should have been angry, should have rejected him immediately, should have remembered David, remembered Jake, remembered 12,000 dead. Instead, she stepped closer, close enough to feel his warmth, close enough to see the vulnerability in his eyes. I don't know what I'm feeling. It's too complicated, too tangled up in grief and anger and something else I can't name yet, but I know this. She reached up, touched his face, traced the line of scales along his jaw. When you collapsed, I was terrified, not because it would look bad for the program, not because I'd lose my subject of study, but because I couldn't imagine this world without you in it anymore, and that scares me more than anything. What do we do? I don't know, but we have time. 4 months. Maybe more if the bonding therapy works. We figure it out together. He leaned into her touch, eyes closing. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but David told me to find something that makes me feel alive. And you, she paused, forcing herself to say it out loud. You make me feel alive, angry, confused, terrified, but alive. When he kissed her forehead, the Krellix gesture of deep respect and affection, she didn't pull away. When she kissed his jaw, the human gesture of desire and acceptance, he shuddered with emotion too big for words. They stood in the garden, surrounded by 5,000 stones of mourning, and chose something other than hate. That night, she didn't go back to the main house. They talked until dawn, sharing histories, hopes, fears. He told her about Krellix culture, the pressure to serve, the shame of surrender. She told him about David, about the guilt of not loving him the way he deserved, about Jake and the accident, and how she had blamed herself for not being able to save him. You carry so much, Zar said, so much weight. So do you. Perhaps we could carry it together, make it lighter. She curled against him on the narrow cottage bed, his body heat a furnace, his dual heartbeats a rhythm that felt like home. This is insane. Completely. People will hate us, both our worlds. I know. I'm 52 years old. You're 217. We're from different species. You killed my husband. I know all of it. Does it change what you're feeling? She thought about David's letter, about choosing to live, about finding something extraordinary in the middle of horror. No, it doesn't change anything. He held her while she cried, for David, for Jake, for 17 years of grief, for the impossibility of what was growing between them. And when the tears finally stopped, when dawn light began filtering through the cottage windows, she kissed him, really kissed him, not tentative, not questioning, but claiming. He responded with 17 decades of loneliness finally finding answer, with the desperation of a dying man finding reason to live, with a warrior's intensity turned toward surrender of a different kind. They didn't make love that night, both knew it was too soon, but they held each other, and in the holding something shifted, some fundamental change in the space between them. Week 6 arrived with autumn rain. The memorial cairn had reached 8,000 stones. Zar's health had stabilized, his scales regaining some of their color. He still had gray patches, still showed signs of decay, but the progression had slowed. Evelyn's research colleagues had started asking questions. Why was she taking so much time away from the institute? Why was she turning down speaking engagements? Who was the Krellix male seen walking the property with her? She ignored them all. The world outside the 40 acres ceased to matter. Until Rob showed up unannounced. He found them in the garden, Evelyn teaching Zar the difference between weeds and wildflowers, both laughing at some private joke. "Evie, we need to talk." She looked up, saw the expression on Rob's face. Anger, hurt, betrayal. "Rob, this isn't a good time." "I'll make it quick then." He looked at Zar with undisguised hostility. "Leave us." Zar glanced at Evelyn. She nodded. He walked back to the cottage, but she could see him watching from the window. "What the hell are you doing?" Rob's voice was low, controlled, dangerous. "I've known you for 30 years, Evie, stood with you at David's funeral, helped you raise Jake, and now I find you playing house with the man who killed your husband." "It's not like that." "Then what is it like? Explain it to me. Make me understand how you can look at that thing and feel anything other than hate." "That thing has a name, and he's dying, Rob. Soul decay. If he doesn't find purpose, emotional connection, he has weeks left." "Good, he deserves to die, slowly, painfully, aware of everything he's done." Evelyn stood, faced her oldest friend. "Is that really what you want? More death, more suffering? Hasn't there been enough?" "Not for him, never enough for him." "David's letter, he asked me to live, to find something that makes me feel alive again. Zar does that. I don't understand it. Can barely accept it myself, but it's real." Rob stared at her. "You're in love with him." "I don't know, maybe. It's complicated." "It's betrayal of David's memory, of everyone who died, of everything we fought for." "David's memory asked me to move forward. The people who died deserve a world where we learn to coexist, not perpetuate cycles of revenge. And what we fought for was peace. Real peace, not just the absence of war. Peace with accountability, justice, not this." He gestured toward the cottage. "Not you falling in bed with the enemy." "We haven't." She stopped, realized it didn't matter. "My personal life is none of your business." "It became my business when you stopped thinking clearly. When you let a war criminal manipulate you into feeling sorry for him." "He's not manipulating me. He's honest. More honest than most humans I know. He owns what he did. Doesn't make excuses. Doesn't ask for forgiveness he knows he doesn't deserve. And that makes it okay. That makes him worthy of you." "I didn't say worthy. I said honest. And maybe I don't need someone worthy. Maybe I need someone who understands what it's like to carry unbearable weight and keep going anyway." Rob's expression shifted. Understanding. Then pain. "I've been in love with you for 20 years, waited, hoped, thought maybe after enough time you'd see me, really see me." Evelyn felt the words like a punch. "Rob, I didn't know." "I know you didn't. That's the problem. You were so busy grieving, you never looked up long enough to notice." He turned to leave. Stopped. "I hope he's worth it, Evie. I hope he's worth losing everyone who actually cares about you." He left, the sound of his truck fading into distance. Zar emerged from the cottage. "Are you all right?" "No, but I will be." He held her while she processed. Didn't offer platitudes, didn't try to fix it, just held her. "He was right about one thing," Evelyn said against his chest. "This is complicated, impossible. We're going to lose people over this." "We can stop. If you want, I understand." She pulled back, looked up at him. "Do you want to stop?" "No, God, no, but I want you to be certain. To choose this knowing what it costs." She thought about David's letter. About Jake asking her on his deathbed to find happiness again. About 17 years of existence versus what the past 6 weeks had felt like. Living. She reached up, pulled Zar down into a kiss. Deep, claiming, choosing. I'm certain the world can hate us if it wants. I'm done living for anyone's approval except my own. That night they made love. Slowly, carefully, learning each other's bodies with the wonder of first discovery, his scales against her skin, her softness against his strength, the biological incompatibility that should have made it impossible somehow transforming into something transcendent. Afterward, tangled together in the narrow bed, Zar traced patterns on her shoulder. I never thought I could feel this. Safety, belonging, love. Neither did I not like this. I'm still dying, Evelyn. The soul decay has slowed, but it hasn't stopped. Dr. Nyla said weeks, maybe months if we're lucky. Then we make every day count. We finish the memorial. We build something good out of all this grief, and we don't waste time on regret. He held her tighter. I love you. I know I've said it, but I need you to know, completely, utterly, in ways I didn't know I was capable of loving. I love you too. It terrifies me, but I love you. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, as rain drummed against the cottage roof, and the memorial cairn outside grew wet and gleaming in the darkness. Week 7 began with a phone call that would change everything. Dr. Nyla, emergency tone. I need to see you both. Immediately, I've made a breakthrough. They met at the Institute, in Nyla's private lab. The Krellix physician pulled up holographic displays, genetic sequences, cellular structures. The bonding has triggered something unexpected. Your combined DNA, the genetic material from both of you, it's producing a hybrid sequence I've never seen before. It could be the key to curing soul decay, not just slowing it, curing it. Evelyn stared at the display. How? A child. If you were to conceive, the embryonic cells would produce regenerative factors specifically tailored to Zar's biology. It's experimental, risky, but it's a real chance. The words hung in the air. A child. Evelyn laughed, bitter, sharp. I'm 52, postmenopausal. I haven't had a period in 3 years. IVF. We have the technology, harvest eggs, combine genetic material. Implant. It's been done with other interspecies couples. And the child, what would their life be like? Hated by both species, never fully belonging anywhere. Nyla's expression softened. Or loved by both, a bridge, the proof that coexistence isn't just possible, it's beautiful. Zar had been silent through the entire exchange. Now he spoke, voice rough. No, I won't ask that of you. The risk, the social cost. No. Evelyn turned to him. You're not asking, I'm considering. Evelyn. We're already in this, already choosing each other despite everything. A child would be, she stopped, thought about Jake, about the joy and terror of motherhood, about whether she could do it again, whether she wanted to. About what David's letter had asked, to live, to choose life. I need time to think. They left the lab in silence, drove home in silence, sat in the cottage as afternoon faded to evening, neither speaking. Finally, Evelyn broke the quiet. Tell me what you're thinking. That I'm dying, that a child would grow up without a father, that I've already taken so much from you, I can't ask for this too. What if you weren't dying? What if this works? Then I'd want it, God, I'd want it, to create life after causing so much death, to have a family with you. Too, his voice cracked. But the risk to you, the pregnancy complications, the social isolation, I can't. Let me decide what I can handle. He met her eyes. What do you want, truly? She thought about it, really thought. Not about should, not about obligation, but about want. I want to build something good with you. I want to prove that love can exist even in impossible circumstances. And I want, she paused, surprised by her own truth. I want to be a mother again. I thought that part of my life was over, but with you, it feels like a new beginning. You're certain? No, I'm terrified, but I'm certain I want to try. They held each other as night fell, and made the decision that would define everything that followed. Tomorrow they would start the IVF process. Tonight they would finish the memorial cairn, all 12,000 stones, together. Under starlight they placed the final stone. 12,000 names, 12,000 lives, 12,000 reasons to choose differently. And in the morning, they would begin choosing life. The IVF clinic occupied the third floor of Portland Medical Center, its waiting room filled with couples of every combination imaginable. Human and human, Krellix and Krellix. The new world, 17 years after war's end. But when Evelyn and Zar walked in together, conversations stopped. Eyes tracked them. Whispers followed. She felt his hand tighten around hers. Protective, uncertain. We can leave, he said quietly. Find another clinic, somewhere more private. No, we do this here in the open. Let them look. Dr. Sarah Kimura met them in consultation room 3, her expression professionally neutral despite whatever she might have felt. She was young, mid-30s perhaps, with kind eyes and efficient movements. She reviewed their files on a holographic display, nodding occasionally. Your age presents challenges, Dr. Shaw. Postmenopausal status means we'll need aggressive hormone therapy to prepare your body. The risks are considerable. Gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, placental complications, and that's before we factor in the interspecies element. I understand the risks. Do you? Because I need you to really hear this. You could die. The pregnancy could kill you. We've had limited success with human Krellix hybrids. 3 attempts, 1 live birth, 1 miscarriage at 20 weeks, 1 maternal death at 32 weeks. Zar stood abruptly. This is insane. We're not doing this. Evelyn remained seated. Yes, we are. I won't let you die for me. You don't get to decide that. My body, my choice, my life to risk. Dr. Kimura watched the exchange with clinical interest. I need both of you committed to this, completely. The process will be months of hormone injections, monitoring, adjustments, then retrieval, then fertilization, then implantation, then 9 months of high-risk pregnancy. It's going to be painful, expensive, emotionally exhausting, and it might not work. But it might save his life. Evelyn looked at Zar. It might cure soul decay for him, for other Krellix suffering the same condition. This isn't just about us. Dr. Kimura pulled up genetic sequencing data Dr. Nyla had sent ahead. The theoretical framework is sound. Hybrid embryonic cells produce cross-species regenerative factors. We've seen it in lab conditions. But theory and practice diverge significantly when dealing with living biology. When can we start? Evelyn asked. Today, if you're certain. I'll need full medical histories, genetic screening, psychological evaluation. The UN requires counseling for all interspecies reproduction attempts. Standard protocol. Zar sat back down, his shoulders slumped in defeat or acceptance. How long before we know if it worked? 6 weeks after implantation. But the hormone therapy to prepare Dr. Shaw's body needs to start immediately. Daily injections, weekly monitoring. It's aggressive, unpleasant. I've survived worse, Evelyn said. They spent 4 hours in the clinic that day. Blood draws, genetic swabs, counseling sessions with a therapist who asked probing questions about their relationship, their motivations, their understanding of what raising an interspecies child would entail. Evelyn answered everything with brittle patience. Zar grew increasingly uncomfortable, his scales darkening with stress. Finally, they left with a bag full of syringes, hormone vials, and instruction manuals. In the parking garage, Zar leaned against their vehicle, head in his hands. I can't believe we're doing this. Evelyn loaded the medical supplies into the back seat, having second thoughts. 100th thoughts, 1000th, this is too much, too risky. She moved to stand in front of him, took his face in her hands, forced him to meet her eyes. I'm choosing this, not because you asked, not because I feel obligated, but because I want it. A child with you, a future. Stop trying to protect me from my own decisions. What if it doesn't work? What if you go through all of this and I still die? Then at least we tried. At least we chose hope. He pulled her close, buried his face against her hair. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. That night, she gave herself the first injection. Zar watched, his distress palpable as she pushed the needle into her abdomen. The hormone burned going in. She gritted her teeth, refused to show pain. Every day, his voice was strained. Every day for 6 weeks. Then we do the retrieval. I should do it, administer the injections. You can barely watch. How would you possibly inject me? I'd learn. It should be me, causing you pain, not you doing it to yourself. She understood what he meant. Accountability, ownership. Tomorrow, you can do tomorrow's injection. Tonight, just hold me. He did, and when the hormone rush hit 2 hours later, making her nauseous and feverish, he held her through that too. Brought cold compresses. Held her hair when she vomited. Whispered apologies she didn't need. This is just the beginning, she told him, voice hoarse. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I know, I'm here for all of it. The weeks that followed blurred together in a haze of medical appointments and physical discomfort. The hormones transformed Evelyn's body, forcing post-menopausal tissue to behave as if she were decades younger. She gained weight, developed acne like a teenager. Her moods swung violently between euphoria and despair. Zar adapted, learned to read her needs before she voiced them, took over cooking when the smell of certain foods made her ill, administered the daily injections with steady hands despite his visible reluctance to cause her any pain. Week 3 brought the first real complication. Evelyn's blood pressure spiked dangerously. Dr. Kimura added medication, increased monitoring to twice weekly. The risk assessment crept higher. We can stop, Dr. Kimura said during one appointment. Your body is showing signs of stress. It's not too late to walk away. Evelyn looked at Zar. His scales had regained some color over the past weeks, the gray patches shrinking slightly. The simple act of hope, of working toward a shared future, was already beginning to heal him. No, we continue. Week 5, week 6, the egg retrieval approached. Sarah called, Evelyn's adopted daughter. They hadn't spoken since Rob's visit, since Sarah had learned about the relationship. The silence had hurt more than Evelyn wanted to admit. Mom, I heard about the IVF. News travels fast. It's all over social media. War widow attempts interspecies pregnancy with Krellix war criminal. The comments are brutal. Evelyn closed her eyes. I can imagine. Are you okay? Really okay? The genuine concern in Sarah's voice broke something in Evelyn's chest. I'm terrified, and sure, and so tired I can barely stand. But okay, yes. Do you love him? Really love him? I do. Then I'm coming home. You shouldn't go through this alone. Sarah arrived the next day, pulling into the driveway in her beat-up sedan, the same car she'd driven since law school. She hugged Evelyn tightly, carefully, as if her mother might break. "You look terrible." "Thank you, very reassuring." "I mean it with love. You look like you haven't slept in weeks." "I haven't. The hormones make sleep impossible." Sarah pulled back, studied Evelyn's face. "Where is he?" "Garden, building the memorial." They walked together to the clearing where the stone cairn now stood nearly complete. 11,900 stones. Only 100 remained. Zar worked methodically, placing each stone with care, his movements showing the strain of ongoing soul decay but also hints of improvement. The gray was receding, slowly but noticeably. He saw them approaching and stood, uncertain. Sarah stopped 10 feet away. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Sarah extended her hand. "I'm Sarah Chen, Evelyn's daughter. We should talk." Zar looked at the offered hand, then at Evelyn. She nodded. He shook Sarah's hand carefully, aware of the strength difference. "I know who you are," he said quietly. "Your mother talks about you often. I know you lost your birth parents in the war. I know she adopted you when you were 11. I know you're an attorney fighting for interspecies rights. I know she's incredibly proud of you." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "She talks about you too, more than I was comfortable with, honestly, but I can see why." "Why?" "Because she's happy, for the first time since I've known her. Actually, genuinely happy. Even looking like death warmed over from the hormones, she's happier than I've ever seen her." Evelyn felt tears threaten. Damn hormones. "Sarah, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. I was angry. At you for moving on. At him for existing. At the universe for making it all so complicated. But Rob was wrong. This isn't betrayal. It's survival. It's choosing life. And if Dad's letter asked you to do that, then I support it." The three of them stood in the garden as afternoon light filtered through trees, and somewhere in the distance, a red-tailed hawk cried out, and the world kept turning despite everything. The egg retrieval happened on a Tuesday. Evelyn went under anesthesia with Zar's hand in hers, woke up groggy and cramping with Sarah and Zar both in the recovery room. 12 eggs, Dr. Kimura reported. "Good quality, better than I expected given your age. We'll fertilize tonight. No results in 5 days." Those 5 days crawled by with excruciating slowness. Evelyn couldn't work, couldn't focus, spent hours staring at nothing while Sarah and Zar tiptoed around her anxiety. On day 5, Dr. Kimura called. 7 embryos, 4 showing strong hybrid cell development. I'd like to implant 2. Increases chances of success but also risk of multiples. "Twins," Evelyn's voice came out higher than intended. "Possible. Are you willing to take that risk?" She looked at Zar. He looked back, amber eyes wide. "Yes, 2 embryos. Let's give ourselves the best chance." The implantation procedure was simple. Clinical, over in minutes. Evelyn lay on the exam table afterward, legs elevated, hands on her abdomen where 2 microscopic clusters of cells now resided. Half human, half Krellix, all hope. "Now we wait," Dr. Kimura said. 2 weeks, then blood test, then ultrasound, then we see. Those 2 weeks were the longest of Evelyn's life. She was forbidden strenuous activity, told to rest, to stay calm, to avoid stress. Impossible, given the media storm. The story had leaked, probably from clinic staff, maybe from protesters who had started gathering outside the medical center. War widow pregnant with alien baby. The headlines screamed from every news feed. Robert Martinez gave an interview, called it a disgrace, a betrayal of everyone who died in the war. Said Evelyn had lost her mind, that Zar had manipulated her, that the whole situation was proof the rehabilitation program had failed. The death threats started arriving by email, by phone, scrawled messages left on the property gates. Evelyn tried to ignore them. Sarah reported them to authorities. Zar wanted to leave, to end the whole thing before she got hurt. No, we're not running. They want to kill you, because of me. They want to kill the idea of us, the proof that forgiveness and love are possible. We can't let them win. UN security installed additional cameras, increased patrols. Dr. Kimura suggested they go into protective custody until the pregnancy was confirmed. Evelyn refused. On day 14, they went for the blood test. Evelyn barely breathed while the technician drew vials, barely existed during the 2-hour wait for results. Dr. Kimura called them into her office. Her expression was unreadable. The test is positive. You're pregnant. The world tilted. Evelyn gripped the chair arms. Zar made a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh. Both embryos? Sarah asked. Dr. Kimura smiled. Both embryos, congratulations, you're having twins. Twins, 2 babies, 2 lives growing inside her. 2 chances to cure Zar, 2 bridges between species. Evelyn started crying, couldn't stop. Zar held her while she wept, his own tears falling into her hair. Sarah stood and excused herself, her own eyes wet. The first trimester will be critical, Dr. Kimura continued. We need weekly monitoring. Any cramping, bleeding, fever you call immediately. The hybrid biology is unpredictable. We're in uncharted territory. I understand. There's something else. The embryonic cells are already producing the regenerative factors we hoped for. I've consulted with Dr. Nyla. The effect should be gradual. You'll likely see initial improvements in Zar's condition around week 12. More significant changes by week 20. If the pregnancy continues successfully to term, full reversal of soul decay is probable. Zar lifted his head. Gradual, not immediate. The cells need time to develop, to produce sufficient quantities of the regenerative proteins. Think of it as a slow healing process, not a sudden cure. We'll monitor his biomarkers weekly alongside your pregnancy progress. That night, they lay tangled together in the cottage bed, Evelyn's hand on her still flat abdomen, Zar's hand covering hers. 2, he whispered. I never imagined, not even 1, but 2. Are you happy? Terrified, overwhelmed, but yes, happier than I knew possible. She turned to face him. They're going to face so much hate, both our worlds will reject them. Or both our worlds will learn to accept them, to see them as proof that the future doesn't have to repeat the past. That's optimistic. I learned optimism from you. She kissed him, slow, deep, tasting salt from tears neither of them had fully shed. I love you. I love you, and them, already so much it frightens me. Week 8 brought the first ultrasound. 2 tiny heartbeats flickering on the screen. 2 small forms barely distinguishable as living beings, but undeniably there. Real, growing. Dr. Kimura pointed out details. This one is slightly larger, probably will be your dominant twin. This one is smaller but showing strong cardiac activity. Both appear healthy. Hybrid development is tracking normally. Normally based on what sample size? Sarah asked from her position in the corner. Fair point, 3, but these 2 look better than any previous attempt. Evelyn couldn't look away from the screen. Her children, hers and Zar's, swimming in fluid, hearts beating in rhythm only medical equipment could detect. Can you tell gender? Too early. Another month maybe. Are you hoping for specific? Evelyn looked at Zar. He shook his head. Healthy, that's all I hope for. After the appointment, Dr. Kimura pulled them aside with Zar's latest biomarker results. Week 8 scan shows measurable improvement. The gray scaling is receding at cellular level. organ function improving by approximately 8%. It's working. Slowly, but it's working. Zar stared at the data. 8% in 8 weeks. If the progression holds steady, you'll be at 40% improvement by week 20, 70 to 80% by birth, full recovery within months postpartum. Week 12 brought both relief and new complications. The first trimester ended with both babies still thriving. Evelyn's body had adapted to the hybrid pregnancy better than anyone predicted. Zar's condition showed dramatic improvement. The gray scaling had receded to less than 30% coverage. His energy levels were noticeably higher. His heart's beat with stronger rhythm. "You look alive again," Sarah observed during one visit. "I feel it. For the first time in years, I feel like my body isn't actively trying to shut down." But the media attention had intensified to dangerous levels. Someone vandalized the memorial cairn, kicked over stones, spray-painted obscenities. Zar rebuilt it in silence, his jaw tight with controlled rage. Someone else threw a brick through the cottage window with a note attached. "Kill the abominations before they're born." Sarah insisted on installing reinforced glass, upgraded security. She had taken leave from her firm to stay with Evelyn, sleeping in the main house, acting as buffer between her mother and the hostile world. "You should consider relocating," she said over dinner one night. "At least until the babies are born, somewhere remote, safe." "I won't be driven from my home." "Mom, they're escalating. The threats are getting more specific, more violent." Zar set down his fork. "Sarah's right. This property is too exposed, too vulnerable. If something happened to you, to the babies, because I was too proud to leave." "We're not leaving." Evelyn's voice carried finality. "We finish the memorial, we live our lives. We refuse to let fear win." But fear was winning in smaller ways. She stopped going into town, stopped answering the phone unless it was medical or family. Spent days inside, curtains drawn, watching her abdomen gradually swell with life while the world outside grew increasingly hostile. Week 16. The anatomy scan. Dr. Kimura spent an hour measuring every aspect of both babies, showed them fingers, toes, spines, organs, pointed out the hybrid characteristics. Scales already forming on shoulders and along the spine. Human facial structures, eyes that would be amber like their father's. "And gender?" Evelyn asked. "Baby A is female, baby B is male, one of each, rare for hybrid births." Zar's hand tightened on Evelyn's. A daughter, a son. His scales shimmered with emotion too big for words. Dr. Kimura pulled up his latest scans afterward. Week 16 biomarkers show 52% improvement. You're ahead of projections. The babies are producing regenerative factors at higher concentrations than we anticipated. At this rate, you'll achieve 75% recovery by week 27, near complete cure by week 32. That evening, they sat together in the garden, the rebuilt memorial complete again, all 12,000 stones in place. Evelyn at 20 weeks pregnant now, showing clearly, her body transformed by the lives growing within. "Names," Zar said. "We should think about names." "I was thinking about that. Something that works in both languages, both cultures." "For the girl, what about Lyra? It means hope in ancient Krellix, and it's close to lyre in English, which means..." "Lyre, a musical instrument, a constellation, I like it. Lyra Hope Valen Shaw." "And the boy." Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. "David, if you're comfortable with that, after my husband." Zar's expression showed surprise, understanding, gratitude. "You'd name our son after the man I killed." "I'd name him after a good man who taught me about love and sacrifice, who asked me to live, whose death brought us together in the strangest, most painful way. David deserves to be remembered, and our son deserves a name that means something. David Marcus Valen Shaw. I would be honored. They sat in silence as stars emerged overhead. The same stars that had looked down on war, that now looked down on peace, on two people from enemy species choosing to create life together. Week 20 brought the complication everyone had feared. Evelyn woke at 3 in the morning to pain. Sharp, sudden, radiating from her abdomen. She stumbled to the bathroom, found blood. Zar! Her scream brought him instantly awake. He found her on the bathroom floor, bleeding, sobbing. He didn't hesitate, scooped her up, ran to the vehicle, drove faster than he'd ever driven while Sarah called ahead to the hospital. Dr. Kimura met them in emergency, rushed Evelyn to ultrasound. The wait was eternal. Finally, the screen flickered to life. 2 heartbeats, still beating, but something was wrong. Placental abruption. Baby A, the placenta is separating from the uterine wall. Not complete yet, but progressing. We need to stop it or we'll lose her. What do we do? Zar's voice shook. Emergency intervention. Medications to stop the separation. Complete bed rest. If it doesn't work, we may need to deliver early. Very early. At 20 weeks survival rates. Do whatever it takes, Evelyn said through tears. Save them, both of them. They admitted her, put her on IV medications that made her feel like fire was spreading through her veins, monitored both babies constantly. Sarah sat vigil on one side of the bed, Zar on the other. 3 days, the longest 3 days. The abruption stabilized but didn't resolve. Dr. Kimura was frank about the odds. You're looking at bed rest for the remainder of the pregnancy. Any movement could restart the separation. And even with perfect compliance, there's significant risk of premature delivery. Before 30 weeks would be, she didn't finish. Didn't need to. I understand. There's something else. Your blood pressure is elevated again. We're seeing early signs of preeclampsia. The combination of placental issues and high blood pressure at this stage is extremely dangerous. Zar stood abruptly. Take them, deliver now, save Evelyn. They wouldn't survive, not at 20 weeks. Then what do we do? Dr. Kimura looked at Evelyn. We fight. We monitor constantly. We pray. And we prepare for the possibility that hard choices may need to be made. They moved Evelyn to a long-term care room. Bed flat, no stairs, no standing. Sarah took leave from her firm officially, moved into the hospital to help. Zar never left except to shower and change clothes. Week 21, 22. The babies grew. Evelyn's condition worsened. The preeclampsia progressed despite medication. Her blood pressure spiked regularly. Protein appeared in her urine. Her hands and feet swelled grotesquely. But Zar's health continued improving. Week 22 showed 68% recovery. His scales gleamed almost fully healthy. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Their children were saving him while potentially killing her. You're in danger, Dr. Kimura said during week 23. Real danger. Another week, maybe 2, and we'll need to deliver regardless of fetal viability. Your organs are starting to fail. How much longer do they need? Ideally, 32 weeks for good survival odds. Realistically, we'd settle for 28. Each week matters, each day matters. Then we get them every day we can. But Evelyn's body was breaking down. The hybrid pregnancy was too much strain. By week 24, she was on 3 different blood pressure medications. By week 25, she needed magnesium to prevent seizures. Sarah sat beside her bed, holding her hand. Mom, you need to think about yourself, if you die. I won't die, not until they're safe. You can't will yourself to survive. Medical science has limits. Then we exceed the limits. Zar spent hours talking to the babies, his hands on Evelyn's swollen abdomen, feeling them move and kick. He told them about Krellix, about Earth, about their mother's courage, about how much he loved them already. "You have to hold on," he whispered during week 26. "Your mother is fighting so hard, you have to fight too." Lyra kicked in response. David pressed against Evelyn's ribs, as if they understood. By week 26, Zar's biomarkers showed 81% recovery. Dr. Nyla confirmed what they all knew. The soul decay was nearly cured. Just one more month and he'd be completely healed. But Evelyn wouldn't last another month. Week 27 brought the crisis no one had wanted. Evelyn's blood pressure hit stroke level. She seized despite medication. Emergency C-section. No choice. 27 weeks, 3 months early. Zar held her hand as they wheeled her to surgery. "I love you. Come back to me. Take care of them, if I don't." "You will. You have to." The surgery was chaos. Doctors shouting. Monitors screaming. Sarah in the waiting room, pacing. Zar not allowed in the operating room because of interspecies contamination protocols, forced to wait outside while they cut his children from the woman he loved. Lyra came first. 2 pounds 3 ounces. Too small, too fragile. They whisked her to NICU before Zar could see. David next. 1 pound 15 ounces. Even smaller, he didn't cry. They worked on him frantically, bagged him, got him breathing, rushed him away. Then Evelyn, hemorrhaging. They couldn't stop the bleeding. Too much damage, too much strain. Dr. Kimura came out 2 hours later. Blood on her scrubs, exhaustion in every line of her face. "The babies are alive, critical but alive. Evelyn is," she paused. "We almost lost her, twice. Her heart stopped twice. We got her back, but the next 24 hours are crucial for all 3 of them." Zar didn't remember falling to his knees, didn't remember Sarah catching him, only remembered the terror of potentially losing everything in one night. He was allowed to see the babies first. 2 isolettes in NICU, impossibly small beings covered in wires and tubes, Lyra with more developed scales, David with more human features, both struggling to breathe, both fighting to exist. He placed his hands on the isolettes, whispered prayers in Krellix and English both, promised them a world worth living in if they could just hold on. Then they let him see Evelyn, ICU, ventilator breathing for her, machines keeping her alive. Her skin was gray, lifeless, but the monitor showed a heartbeat. Steady, strong, fighting. He sat beside her bed, took her hand, and began to talk. He told her about the babies, about how beautiful they were, how strong, how they had her determination and his stubbornness. He told her about the memorial, about how he'd finished it, all 12,000 stones, about how he wanted to build another one, this time celebrating life instead of mourning death. He told her he loved her, over and over, until his voice gave out and he could only sit in silence, holding her hand, willing her to live. Sarah found him there at dawn. The babies made it through the night. Doctors are cautiously optimistic. And Evelyn. Still critical, but stable. She's fighting Zar, just like she always fights. 3 days in ICU. Evelyn remained unconscious, ventilated, hovering between life and death. But the babies grew stronger, gained a few ounces, began breathing without quite so much support. On day 4, Evelyn opened her eyes. Zar was there, had been there every moment. He saw the flicker of consciousness, leaned close. "Welcome back." She tried to speak around the breathing tube. Couldn't. Panic flooded her eyes. "The babies are alive, both of them. They're tiny and they're fighting hard, but they're alive. You did it, Evelyn. You saved them." Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. relief, joy, exhaustion. They removed the breathing tube that afternoon, moved her from ICU to recovery, wheeled her to NICU so she could see her children for the first time outside of ultrasound images. She wept when she saw them, her tiny, perfect, impossible children, human and Krellix and entirely themselves, fighting to exist against impossible odds. "Can I touch them?" Her voice was barely a whisper. The NICU nurse nodded, opened the isolette ports, guided Evelyn's hand to Lyra's impossibly small chest, then to David's. Skin to scale, mother to children, connection that transcended species. "They're beautiful," Evelyn breathed. "They're survivors," Zar said, "like their mother." Dr. Kimura pulled them aside later with unexpected news. "The emergency delivery, the stress on your system, it triggered something we didn't anticipate. I'm seeing cellular changes in your tissue samples. The hybrid pregnancy didn't just stress your body, it regenerated it, at a cellular level. Your reproductive system, your endocrine function, even your cardiovascular markers are showing rejuvenation patterns." "What does that mean?" Evelyn asked. "It means the hybrid biology worked both ways. Their cells saved Zar. And in the process of carrying them, your cells were transformed too. I've never seen anything like it. You're biologically younger than you were 6 months ago. Not dramatically, but measurably." The implications hung unspoken, but Evelyn filed the information away. Something to process later, when she wasn't fighting just to stay conscious. The next weeks blurred together. Evelyn recovered slowly, her body damaged by the pregnancy but healing. The babies grew incrementally, fighting off infection, breathing challenges, feeding difficulties. Every day a battle, every day a victory. Zar's final biomarker scan at week 32 gestation equivalent showed 97% recovery. The soul decay was gone, cured. His scales gleamed with full health, his eyes bright, his movements carrying energy that had been absent when they first met. By week 32 gestation, they had both topped 3 pounds. The doctors began talking about discharge, about going home. "They'll need monitoring," Dr. Kimura warned. "Round-the-clock care, medical equipment, but they're stable enough, strong enough." Sarah had transformed the main house, converted the spare bedroom into a nursery, installed monitors, stocked supplies, made everything ready. On the day they brought Lyra and David home, protesters lined the driveway. Signs, chants, anger, but UN security kept them back, created a corridor. Evelyn carried Lyra, Zar carried David. Sarah led the way, head high, daring anyone to interfere. Inside, they placed both babies in their cribs, stood together watching them sleep. 2 tiny miracles, 2 impossible bridges. "We did it," Evelyn said softly. "Against every odd, every prediction, we did it." Zar pulled her close. "You did it, you risked everything." "For everything," she looked up at him. "Was it worth it?" He didn't answer with words, kissed her instead, deep, grateful, full of love that had grown from impossible beginnings into something that had literally created life. That night, after the babies were fed and changed and sleeping, after Sarah had gone to bed, after the protesters had dispersed, Evelyn and Zar sat together on the cottage porch. "Your scales," she said, touching his neck. "They're completely healed, no more gray, no more decay." "The babies cured me, just like Dr. Nyla predicted. Their existence saved my life." "So we saved each other." "We did." In the distance, the memorial cairn stood silent in moonlight. 12,000 stones, 12,000 reasons to choose differently. And in the house behind them, 2 new lives that proved choosing differently was possible. Evelyn leaned against Zar's shoulder, his warmth surrounding her, and thought about David's letter. about choosing to live, about finding something that made her feel alive. She had found it, in the most impossible place, with the most unlikely person, in the form of two tiny children who shouldn't exist but did. The future remained uncertain. The world remained hostile. But tonight, in this moment, they had everything that mattered. Hope, love, life. And the courage to keep choosing them, no matter the cost. The twins turned 6 months old on a Tuesday morning in early spring. Evelyn woke to their synchronized crying, a sound she had learned to distinguish between hunger, discomfort, and the simple need for presence. This was presence. She rose, her body still carrying the weight of what pregnancy had cost, and padded to the nursery. Lyra stood in her crib, scales shimmering faint blue in the dawn light, her amber eyes tracking Evelyn's approach with intelligence beyond her months. David lay on his back, human features more pronounced than his sister's, but the scales along his shoulders and spine marking him as his father's son. Both reached for her with small hands that were neither fully human nor fully Krellix, but entirely their own. She lifted Lyra first, felt the warmth of her, the solid weight of life that had been so fragile just months ago. Then David, balancing both against her chest. They quieted immediately, content in her presence. Zar appeared in the doorway. 6 months of healing had transformed him. His scales gleamed with full health, the gray completely gone, his eyes bright, his movements carrying energy that had been absent when they first met. Soul decay cured, life restored, all because of the two small beings Evelyn held. "Good morning," he said softly, moving to take David. The baby reached for his father's face, grabbed a handful of scales with surprising strength. Zar laughed, the sound still startling after months of hearing it. Joy from a man who had known only war for nearly 2 centuries. "They're getting stronger," Evelyn observed. "David pulled himself to standing yesterday. Lyra is trying." "Too fast. They're growing too fast." It was true. Hybrid genetics meant accelerated development. Already they showed capabilities of 9 or 10-month-olds. Dr. Kimura monitored closely, fascinated and concerned in equal measure. Sarah's voice called from downstairs. "Breakfast in 10, and we have a visitor." Evelyn and Zar exchanged glances. Visitors were rare. Most people still viewed them with hostility or, at best, uncomfortable curiosity. They dressed the twins, changed diapers, and carried them downstairs. Dr. Nyla Tesor sat at the kitchen table, her green scales a stark contrast to the warm wood. She stood when they entered, her expression grave. "I apologize for the early hour. There's been a development." "What kind of development?" Zar shifted David to his other arm, protective instincts immediately engaged. "The Krellix Empire has requested your presence, both of you, and the children." Silence fell heavy. Sarah stopped pouring coffee. Evelyn felt her heart rate spike. "Why?" she managed. "The new emperor. He's seen the medical data, the proof that hybrid genetics can cure soul decay. There are thousands of Krellix veterans suffering the same condition. He wants to understand, to potentially develop treatment protocols based on your children's unique biology." "No," Evelyn's voice was flat, final. "Absolutely not. We're not taking infants into Krellix space. We're not exposing them to..." She stopped, couldn't finish the thought. Nyla raised her hands placatingly. "I understand your concern, but there's more. The Emperor is offering something in exchange. Full pardons, for both of you. Recognition of your marriage as legal under Krellix law. Citizenship for the children in both worlds. Protection." "We don't need Krellix citizenship," Zar said. "You need protection. The attacks haven't stopped. The threats. Just last week someone tried to breach your property line. UN security can only do so much. But if the Empire publicly endorses your family, sanctions anyone who threatens you, that changes the equation significantly. Evelyn sat down heavily, Lyra still in her arms. What exactly are they asking? A visit, 2 weeks. You'd stay in the Imperial Medical Complex. The children would be examined by Krellix physicians. Genetic samples taken, that's all. No experiments, no separation from parents. Full autonomy maintained. And if we refuse? Then nothing changes. You continue as you are, under constant threat, with half the world hating you and the other half afraid of you. Sarah leaned against the counter. What's the real reason? The Emperor doesn't do favors. There's a political angle. Nyla nodded, acknowledging the insight. The Empire is fracturing. War veterans feel betrayed by the peace. Younger generations want reform. The Emperor needs proof that coexistence works, that the treaty wasn't weakness but evolution. Your family is that proof. Zar set David in his high chair, began preparing breakfast with mechanical precision. They want to use us, parade us around as symbols of reconciliation. Yes, but symbols have power. Your children could change how both species view each other, could prevent another war. That's too much weight for 2 babies to carry, Evelyn said quietly. They're already carrying it, whether you go or not. The question is whether you want to have any control over the narrative. The discussion continued through breakfast and into the afternoon. Sarah researched Krellix law, found precedents, loopholes, potential dangers. Zar contacted former military colleagues who had settled on Earth, got perspectives on the current political climate. By evening, they had made no decision. Evelyn found Zar in the garden, sitting beside the memorial cairn. The 12,000 stones stood silent witness to everything they had overcome. He held David in his lap, the baby playing with his father's clawed fingers, giggling when Zar made rumbling sounds in Krellix. What are you thinking? She sat beside them, Lyra on her hip. That I swore I'd never go back. That returning feels like betraying everything we've built here. But Nyla is right. The attacks won't stop. Someone will eventually succeed in hurting you or the children. I can't protect you from an entire world's worth of hate, but the Empire could. Evelyn shifted Lyra to her other side. The baby immediately reached for her brother, and they held hands across the space between their parents, a bridge in miniature. David's letter told me to choose life, to find something worth living for. I found it. Found you. Found them. Going to Krellix space feels like risking all of that. Or protecting it. She knew he was right. Hated that he was right. If we do this, we do it together. No separation. No compromises on their safety. Agreed. And if anything feels wrong, we leave immediately. Yes. She leaned against his shoulder, watched the twins interact with that wordless communication unique to siblings. When did we become so brave? We're not brave, we're desperate. There's a difference. Then we're desperately brave. He kissed the top of her head. We tell Nyla tomorrow. Give ourselves one more night to pretend we have a choice. They called Nyla the next morning, agreed to the terms. 2 weeks, full medical examination for the children, genetic sampling only, no separation, complete autonomy. The preparations took 3 days, medical documentation, travel permits, security arrangements. Sarah insisted on coming, her legal expertise potentially valuable. Dr. Kimura provided detailed health records for both twins. The transport ship arrived on a Friday. Krellix military vessel, but stripped of weapons per treaty terms. The captain was female, scales the color of deep ocean, her manner professional but not unkind. Commandant Valen, Dr. Shaw, it's an honor to transport you. They loaded supplies. diapers, formula, medical equipment. Enough provisions for 2 weeks plus emergency reserves. The ship's interior was designed for Krellix physiology, everything too large, too warm. But they had converted a cabin for human occupancy, installed appropriate environmental controls. As the ship lifted off, Evelyn watched her property shrink below. The main house, the cottage, the memorial cairn, everything they had built together. She felt Zar's hand find hers, squeeze gently. "We'll come back," he said. "Promise." "I promise." The journey took 4 days. Faster than light travel made distances meaningless, but protocol required gradual deceleration approaching Krellix space. Evelyn spent the time caring for the twins, who adapted to zero gravity with disturbing ease. Lyra particularly enjoyed floating, her scales shimmering with delight. David was more cautious, preferring to cling to his parents. Sarah worked constantly, reviewing legal documents, preparing contingencies. "If anything goes wrong, we have extraction protocols. UN has assets in the region. I've made sure they know where we are." On day 4, they entered Krellix space proper. The view screen showed their homeworld, larger than Earth, its surface dominated by vast oceans and volcanic island chains. The sky was perpetually stormy, lightning dancing between clouds, beautiful and harsh in equal measure. The imperial city sprawled across the largest continent, its architecture all sharp angles and dark metal. The palace complex dominated the skyline, a fortress that doubled as seat of government. Their ship landed in a private bay, far from public access. Emperor Kael'thar himself met them on the landing platform. He was massive even by Krellix standards, scales nearly black, eyes like molten gold. But his manner was measured, almost gentle as he approached. "Commandant Valen, you honor us with your return." Zar bowed formally, a gesture Evelyn had never seen him make. "Emperor, I present my family. Dr. Evelyn Shaw, my mate, our daughter Lyra, our son David." Kael'thar studied the twins with undisguised fascination. "May I?" Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. The Emperor extended one clawed finger. Lyra grabbed it immediately, fearless. David watched warily but didn't cry. "Remarkable, they carry both legacies so completely." Kael'thar straightened. "You have my word. No harm will come to them here. They are under Imperial protection." "Why are we really here?" Evelyn asked bluntly. "Dr. Nyla explained about soul decay treatment, but there's more. There's always more with politics." The Emperor's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "Direct, I appreciate that. Yes, there is more, walk with me." He led them through corridors of polished stone, past guards who stood at attention, into a private chamber overlooking the city. Sarah stayed close, her hand near the emergency beacon she had insisted on carrying. "The Empire is dying," Kael'thar said without preamble. "Not in the way your mate was dying, Commandant, but spiritually, culturally. We have been warriors for 10,000 years. Peace is foreign to us. Veterans return home and find no purpose. Soul decay spreads like plague. Younger generations question everything we taught them about honor and strength." "You need proof that peace has value," Zar said. "More than proof. I need hope. Your children represent evolution, biological proof that we can be more than what we were. That hybrid vigor isn't just genetics but philosophy." Evelyn shifted Lyra higher on her hip. "You want to use them as propaganda." "I want to give my people a reason to choose life over death. Is that so different from what you chose?" The question hung unanswered, because it wasn't different. They had chosen life, chosen hope, chosen to believe in the possibility of change. "What exactly do you need from us?" Sarah asked, lawyer voice engaged. 2 weeks, public appearances. Let our people see the children. Let our physicians study the hybrid genetics. record testimonials about how the bonding cured soul decay, and at the end, a formal ceremony, recognition of your family as the first official human Krellix union. And if we agree, Evelyn pressed. Full pardons, citizenship for the children, imperial protection, and access to resources, medical, financial, political, whatever you need to ensure your family's safety and prosperity. If we refuse, you return to Earth. Continue as you are. I'll still offer protection where I can, but it will be limited, unofficial, and eventually someone will succeed in harming you. Evelyn looked at Zar, saw the conflict in his eyes. This was his homeworld. These were his people. But he had left, turned his back, called himself traitor. Returning meant facing all of that. I need to speak with my family privately, she said. Kael'thar bowed. Of course, take the time you need. I'll have quarters prepared, comfortable, appropriate for your needs. The quarters were palatial. Separate rooms for sleeping, eating, and the children. Environmental controls perfect, but it still felt like a gilded cage. Sarah paced while the twins napped, her nervous energy filling the space. I don't like it. Too many variables, too much we can't control. But he's right about the protection, Evelyn countered. Earth hasn't kept us safe. Maybe Krellix can. Maybe Krellix wants to study the children's genetics for military applications. Create super soldiers. We don't know. Zar stood at the window, watching lightning crack across the sky. The Emperor is many things, manipulative, politically calculating, but he's not a liar. If he promises protection, he'll deliver. How can you be sure? Because I know Krellix honor codes. A public promise from the Emperor binds him absolutely. To break it would mean losing face before the entire empire. He'd rather die. That's a lot of faith in a system you rejected, Sarah observed. I rejected war, not honor. There's a difference. Evelyn joined him at the window, David stirring in her arms. What do you want to do? I want to keep our family safe. If that means performing for politicians, so be it. You'd be comfortable with that, being on display. No, but I'd be less comfortable explaining to our children why I chose pride over their safety. The decision made itself. They agreed to Kael'thar's terms with modifications. No genetic sampling without parental supervision. No public appearances for the children without security protocols. Full medical records provided to Sarah for review, and an extraction plan maintained throughout. The next 2 weeks blurred into a carefully choreographed performance. Krellix physicians examined the twins daily, marveling at their hybrid physiology. Lyra's scales were denser than human skin, but more flexible than Krellix armor. David's bone structure showed enhanced density while maintaining human proportions. Both demonstrated accelerated healing, enhanced sensory processing, and cognitive development tracking ahead of either species alone. Dr. Nyla worked with the medical teams, documenting everything. The embryonic cells that had cured Zar's soul decay could be synthesized, replicated, potentially deployed to treat thousands of suffering veterans. This changes everything, she told Evelyn during one session. Soul decay has been a death sentence for generations. Now we have hope for a cure because of your children. Public appearances were carefully managed. First, a small gathering of high-ranking officials, then physicians and scientists. Finally, a larger assembly of veterans, many showing visible signs of soul decay. Evelyn stood before them, holding Lyra, while Zar carried David. She spoke about their journey, about loss and grief, about choosing to forgive, about building something new from the ruins of war. The response was mixed. Some wept. Some looked away, ashamed or angry. But many listened with desperate attention, as if her words were water and they were dying of thirst. One veteran approached afterward, scales gray, movements labored. "Your mate killed my brother. Portland Offensive, 43rd Marine Division." Evelyn's breath caught. 43rd, the same division as David. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said quietly. "I hated him, hated all humans, wanted nothing more than to see your species burn." The veteran looked at the twins. But seeing them, knowing they cured soul decay, knowing they exist because a human woman chose to love her enemy instead of hate him, it makes me question everything. "What will you do with those questions?" Zar asked. "I don't know, but I'll try to find answers that don't involve more death." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. The formal ceremony took place on day 13. The imperial throne room, vast and intimidating, filled with hundreds of witnesses. Kael'thar presided, his presence commanding absolute attention. "We gather to recognize the bonding of Commandant Zar Valen and Dr. Evelyn Shaw. To grant citizenship to their offspring, Lyra Hope Valen Shaw and David Marcus Valen Shaw. To acknowledge that strength comes not only from conquest, but from the courage to choose peace." The formalities took hours, oaths exchanged, documents signed, genetic records entered into imperial archives. Through it all, the twins behaved remarkably well, as if understanding the importance of the moment. Finally, Kael'thar stood. "I hereby declare this family under permanent imperial protection. Let any who harm them answer to me personally." The decree carried weight of law, absolute, irrevocable. That night, their last before returning to Earth, Evelyn and Zar stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Below, celebrations had erupted spontaneously. The first hybrid family officially recognized, symbol of new possibilities. "Do you regret it?" she asked, "coming back?" "No, it was necessary, but I'll be glad to leave tomorrow. Earth is home now." "You are home, you and the children. Geography is irrelevant." She leaned into his warmth. "Lyra said her first word today. Did you hear?" "No, what did she say?" "Duh, looking right at you. Her first word was calling for you." His arms tightened around her. "I never imagined, when I kept your husband's letter, when I surrendered my fleet, when I came to Earth expecting to die, I never imagined this." "Neither did I. I thought I'd spend my life hating. Instead, I learned to love." "Do you still think about him, David?" "Every day, but not with pain anymore, with gratitude. He gave me 18 years, taught me about ordinary happiness, asked me to live. And his death, terrible as it was, created the chain of events that led to you, to our children. I hate that he died, but I can't hate what came after." That's wisdom I still struggle to reach. The people I killed, the families destroyed, I can acknowledge it, accept responsibility, work to make amends, but forgiveness of myself, I don't know if I'll ever get there. Then we'll work toward it together, one day at a time. They stood in silence, watching stars emerge between storm clouds, and felt the weight of two worlds resting on their shoulders, not crushing them, but reminding them of what they carried, what they represented. The return journey passed quickly. The twins had adapted to space travel, slept peacefully through most of it. Sarah spent the time drafting implementation plans for the Imperial Protection Decree, ensuring Earth authorities would honor it. As they approached Earth orbit, Evelyn felt tension drain from her shoulders. Home, despite everything, despite the protests and threats and hate, Earth was home. They landed at the same UN facility where Zar had first arrived months ago. But this time, media waited. Cameras, reporters. The story of the Krellix Emperor's recognition had preceded them. Sarah handled press relations with practiced efficiency. "The family will make a brief statement. No questions at this time." Evelyn stood at the podium, Zar beside her, twins in their arms. She looked at the cameras, knowing millions watched. 6 months ago, we brought our children home from the hospital. Premature, fragile, fighting to survive. Today they're healthy, thriving, recognized as citizens of two worlds. We didn't ask for this attention, didn't seek to be symbols. But if our family can show that love transcends species, that forgiveness is possible, that peace has real, tangible value, then we accept that responsibility. Not for ourselves, but for our children, for all children. Human, Krellix, and those yet to come who will inherit the world we build today. The drive home felt surreal. Familiar roads, familiar trees, but everything changed. UN security vehicles accompanied them. Imperial protection meant Krellix ships now patrolled Earth orbit. Their property had been transformed during their absence, additional security measures installed, but also improved facilities for the children. And the protesters were gone. Imperial decree had made threatening the family an act of war. Earth wasn't ready to risk that. Sarah moved back to her apartment in Portland, her work done for now. But she visited weekly, bringing supplies, playing with her niece and nephew, marveling at their development. Lyra is walking, she reported one afternoon. At 7 months, that's impossible. Hybrid genetics, Evelyn explained. Dr. Kimura says they'll likely reach developmental milestones months ahead of either species alone. Do you worry about what that means? Every day, but I can't protect them from being exceptional. I can only teach them to use their gifts wisely. Months passed. The twins grew with startling speed. By their first birthday, they had the development of 3-year-olds. Lyra spoke in full sentences, her vocabulary mixing English and Krellix seamlessly. David was quieter but showed remarkable spatial reasoning, building complex structures from blocks. Dr. Nyla visited regularly, documenting their progress. The soul decay cure derived from their genetics had been successfully deployed to over 2,000 Krellix veterans. Recovery rates exceeded 90%. You've saved thousands of lives, she told them during one visit. Changed the trajectory of an entire species. The Empire is transforming, veterans finding new purpose, younger generations embracing reform, all because you two chose love over hate. It wasn't a choice, Evelyn said quietly. Or it was, but not the simple kind. It was 1,000 small choices, every day, to keep trying, to keep believing, to keep hoping. Zar added, and it's still a choice. Every morning I wake up and choose not to be defined by what I was, choose to be worthy of what I have now. The second year brought new challenges. The twins started showing abilities neither parent possessed. Lyra could sense emotional states, read intentions with uncanny accuracy. David demonstrated enhanced strength, lifting objects that should have been impossible for his size. They're evolving, Dr. Kimura explained during a routine checkup. Not just combining traits, but creating entirely new capabilities. We're watching human and Krellix genetics interact in real time, producing something unprecedented. She pulled up cellular scans, pointed to specific markers. And there's something else. The biological changes we observed in you after the pregnancy, Dr. Shaw. They're more extensive than I initially realized. Your cellular regeneration patterns, your hormone levels, your reproductive system, they've all been fundamentally altered by carrying hybrid offspring. Altered how? Evelyn asked. Your body underwent a form of genetic recalibration. The hybrid cells didn't just develop inside you. They integrated with your biology, exchanged genetic information, triggered dormant repair mechanisms. In essence, the pregnancy rejuvenated your reproductive system at a cellular level. It's still functional, active, theoretically capable of conception again. Evelyn stared at her. I'm 56, that's impossible. It should be, but the scans don't lie. Your ovarian reserve has partially regenerated. Your uterine lining is healthier than it was before the pregnancy. Your hormone production is tracking closer to a woman in her early 40s than mid-50s. The hybrid biology created a feedback loop. Their cells healed Zar's soul decay. And in the process of gestating them, your cells were transformed too. Dr. Kimura pulled up comparative imaging, before and after pregnancy scans. The difference was stark. This is unprecedented in human biology. But then again, you're the first human to carry hybrid offspring to term. We're in completely uncharted territory. The interspecies genetic exchange appears to have triggered regenerative cascades we're only beginning to understand. It's as if their alien DNA activated dormant repair pathways in your genome that humans evolved to have, but normally never access. Is it dangerous? Zar asked. Unknown, but the regeneration appears stable, controlled. Your body isn't rejecting the changes, it's adapting to them, incorporating them. I'll continue monitoring, but so far there's no indication of pathology, just transformation. The information sat heavy in Evelyn's mind for weeks. A second chance at fertility she had never asked for, never imagined. Year 3 arrived with spring. Lyra and David were now developmentally equivalent to 7-year-olds, their hybrid vigor pushing them far ahead of normal childhood trajectories. They needed challenges neither standard human nor Krellix educational systems could provide. What worried Evelyn more was socialization. The twins had each other but few peers. Other children were afraid of them, parents uncomfortable. Playgroups refused admission. Sarah found a solution, an experimental school in Portland designed for interspecies children. Small, private, carefully vetted families who had chosen to build lives across species lines. The first day Evelyn dropped them off, she stood in the parking lot watching through the window. Lyra immediately made friends, her natural charisma drawing other children. David hung back, observing, until a human girl offered him a toy. He smiled, that rare, beautiful smile that transformed his serious face, and accepted. They'll be okay, the director assured her. Children adapt faster than adults. They don't carry our baggage. Evelyn wanted to believe that, needed to. Year 4 approached. The twins were thriving. Zar was completely healed, his vitality restored. The world had grudgingly accepted their existence. Life had settled into something approximating normal. Then came the morning Evelyn woke feeling nauseous. She dismissed it, food poisoning, stress, age, but when the nausea persisted for a week, she couldn't ignore it anymore. Dr. Kimura ran the tests, stared at the results, looked up with an expression Evelyn couldn't read. You're pregnant. The world stopped. That's impossible. Apparently not. You're approximately 10 weeks along. The regeneration I documented wasn't theoretical. It was real. Active. Your reproductive system is functional again, against all conventional medical understanding, but functional nonetheless. Evelyn sat down heavily. 10 weeks, 2.5 months. She'd missed symptoms, dismissed changes, because pregnancy at 56 was supposed to be biologically impossible. But hybrid biology had rewritten the rules. Single fetus this time, Dr. Kimura continued, pulling up ultrasound images. Developing normally, strong heartbeat. The hybrid cellular exchange from your first pregnancy appears to have made your body more receptive to interspecies conception. The biological barriers that normally prevent such pregnancies have been permanently altered in your case. She explained the science carefully. The first hybrid pregnancy had introduced Krellix genetic material that integrated with Evelyn's cellular structure, created permanent changes, activated regenerative pathways, essentially made her biologically compatible with bearing hybrid offspring in ways no human should be. Your body learned to gestate hybrid children, and it remembered. The cellular memory made this second conception possible. Natural conception, not IVF. Your biology and Zar's are now fundamentally compatible at a reproductive level. It's extraordinary, unprecedented, but real. Evelyn stared at the ultrasound. Another life. Growing, impossible but undeniable. She told Zar that evening, watched shock transform his face. Another child. The hybrid pregnancy changed me, permanently, made this possible. Are you okay? Your health, the risks. Dr. Kimura says lower risk this time. My body knows what to do now. The cellular changes from the first pregnancy should make this one easier. No guarantees, but better odds. They sat in silence, processing. Then Zar's hand found hers. What do you want? I'm terrified, but I want this. Another chance, another life, proof that we can keep building something good. Then we'll do it, together. They told the twins that evening. Lyra's face lit with joy. A baby, I'm going to be a big sister. David processed more slowly. Will this one be like us, mixed? Yes, Evelyn confirmed. You'll have a brother or sister who understands what it's like to be both human and Krellix. Good, being only as lonely. Her heart broke a little at that. Despite their closeness, despite the special school, they still felt isolated. Different, other. The pregnancy progressed smoothly this time. No complications, no drama, just steady, healthy development. At 20 weeks, they learned the gender. Another girl, Dr. Kimura announced. Perfectly healthy. They named her Hope. Hope Evelyn Shaw. Because if Lyra represented hope that had been hard-won, this child represented hope freely given. Proof that their transformed biology could create life naturally, that their family could keep growing. Hope was born naturally, no emergency interventions needed. 6 pounds, 2 ounces. Scales more prominent than David's but less than Lyra's. Eyes that shifted between human brown and Krellix amber depending on the light. The twins adored her instantly. Lyra appointed herself primary caretaker, always wanting to help feed and change and soothe. David was gentler, more cautious, but no less devoted. They're going to spoil her, Evelyn observed, watching Lyra make exaggerated faces to make the baby smile. Let them. Siblings should love each other that fiercely. Year 5, year 6. The original twins were now 11 by human development, still only 6 by chronological age. Hope grew at a more normal pace, suggesting each generation of hybrids might stabilize closer to baseline. Dr. Nyla published comprehensive research on hybrid genetics, won prestigious awards. The data had led to breakthroughs not just in soul decay treatment, but in regenerative medicine broadly. Lives saved numbered in the tens of thousands now. You should be proud, she told them. Your family changed everything. But pride felt complicated when Lyra came home crying because classmates called her abomination. When David got in a fight defending his sister, his strength accidentally breaking another child's arm. When Hope asked why some people looked at her with hate. I thought it would be easier by now, Evelyn admitted to Sarah one afternoon. 6 years, the Empire recognizes us. The UN protects us, but people still hate. Some people will always hate. What matters is what you teach your children about that hate. What should I teach them? That hate is fear wearing a mask, that they don't have to earn acceptance from people incapable of giving it, that their worth isn't determined by others' opinions. Wise words. Evelyn tried to live them, tried to model confidence and resilience. But some nights she lay awake worrying about the future, about what world her children would inherit. Year 7 brought the first real test of imperial protection. A terrorist group, human supremacists, attempted to kidnap Lyra from her school. They got as far as the parking lot before Krellix security intervened. The attackers were captured, imprisoned, made examples of. But Lyra was traumatized, stopped sleeping, started having nightmares, refused to leave the house. "I want to go back to Krellix," she said one night, curled in Evelyn's lap despite being too large for it. "Where people don't hate us." "People hate everywhere, sweetheart, in different ways, for different reasons. Running won't change that." "Then what will?" "Time, education, people meeting you and realizing you're just a person, not a symbol, not a threat, just Lyra." "How long will that take?" "I don't know, maybe your whole life, maybe longer." "That's not fair." "No, it's not." They increased security, limited public appearances, focused on creating a safe, loving home environment. But the incident had shaken something loose in Zar. "I thought Imperial protection would be enough," he said, "but they still got close, too close." "We can't protect them from everything." "I know, but I need to try harder." He started training the twins in self-defense. Krellix combat techniques adapted for their hybrid physiology. Lyra took to it naturally, her emotional sensing giving her advantage in predicting opponents. David was more methodical, all strategy and precision. Hope watched from the sidelines, too young to participate but absorbing everything. Year 8, Year 9. The twins were now teenagers by development, still children by chronological age. The dissonance created identity struggles. Lyra started questioning everything: her purpose, her place, why she existed. "Am I just a medical experiment?" she asked Evelyn during a particularly difficult conversation. "Something created to cure a disease." "No, you're our daughter, loved, wanted. Yes, your existence has helped others. But that's not why you exist. You exist because your father and I loved each other and wanted to create a family." "But you wouldn't have gotten together if not for the soul decay, if he hadn't been dying." Evelyn took a breath. "Maybe, maybe not. I like to think we would have found each other somehow. But yes, his condition was part of our story. Does that make you less real, less valuable?" "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm not a person, just a bridge, a symbol, the proof that humans and Krellix can coexist." "You're all of those things, and none of them. You're Lyra, smart, compassionate, occasionally dramatic, lover of music and mathematics and terrible jokes. That's who you are. Everything else is just context." It helped, some, but adolescence was hard even for human children. For hybrids navigating dual identities, it was exponentially more complex. David handled it differently, withdrew into himself, spent hours building complex machines from scrap materials, his spatial reasoning producing engineering innovations that caught attention of university researchers. "He's gifted," one professor told them. "Beyond gifted. He's thinking three-dimensionally in ways I've never seen. With proper training, he could revolutionize structural engineering." But David didn't want attention, didn't want to be special, just wanted to be normal. "How do I give them that?" Evelyn asked Zar. "How do I give them normal when they're anything but?" "We can't, but we can give them love, stability, the knowledge that they're valued for who they are, not what they represent." Year 10. The twins' chronological 10th birthday. Developmentally, they were nearly adult. The party was small, just family and a few close friends from the interspecies school. No media, no cameras, just cake and presents and the simple joy of being together. Hope, now 6, gave Lyra a handmade card. For the best big sister ever. David built Lyra a music box from scratch, its mechanisms so precise it played perfectly. Evelyn and Zar gave them both something different, a letter, handwritten. Read it when you're ready, Evelyn said. Not now, later, when you need to remember. Lyra opened hers that night. Read words her mother had carefully chosen. My darling daughter, you were born too early, too small, fighting for every breath. I spent your first months terrified I would lose you. Now I watch you grow into someone extraordinary, and I'm terrified for different reasons. Terrified the world won't appreciate you, won't understand you, won't give you the space to be fully yourself. But here's what I need you to know. You don't exist to prove anything to anyone. You exist because love is stronger than hate. Because your father and I chose each other despite impossible odds, because we believed in the possibility of better. You are that possibility made real, not a symbol, not an experiment, a person, beloved, valued, free to become whoever you choose to be. Your gifts are extraordinary, your heritage is complex, but your worth is inherent. You owe the world nothing except what you choose to give. And whatever you choose, I will be proud. Forever your mother, Evelyn. She cried reading it. Kept crying until David found her, and they cried together, and Hope joined them without understanding why, but knowing her family needed her. Zar found them like that. 3 children tangled together, tears and love and the simple truth that they had each other. What happened? Mom's letter, Lyra managed. It's perfect. He smiled. Your mother usually is. Year 15. Lyra and David were adults by any measure, 23 by developmental age, 15 chronologically. The legal system didn't know how to categorize them. Were they minors, adults, somewhere between? The courts eventually ruled them legal adults based on cognitive and emotional maturity assessments. They could vote, sign contracts, make their own decisions. Lyra chose college, pre-med, wanted to be a doctor like her mother. David chose engineering, his innovations already attracting corporate interest. Hope, now 11, took their departure hard. Everyone leaves, she said sadly. They're going to school, not leaving, they'll visit. It's not the same. Evelyn understood. She felt it too. The empty nest arriving far earlier than anticipated because of accelerated development. But life continued. Zar took a position teaching Krellix cultural studies at the university. Evelyn reduced her hours at the institute, focused more on family. Sarah visited weekly, now married herself to an Avarian partner, planning their own hybrid family. The world kept turning. Slowly, grudgingly, accepting that interspecies families existed, that they weren't going away, that the future would be mixed whether anyone liked it or not. Year 20. Lyra graduated medical school, top of her class, gave a commencement speech about bridges and hope and choosing to build instead of destroy. David had already founded an engineering firm, his designs transforming construction industry. Hope, 16 chronologically but 24 developmentally, had followed neither path. Instead, she chose diplomacy. UN Youth Ambassador Program, using her unique perspective to mediate conflicts. She's better at it than I ever was, Sarah admitted. More patient, more willing to find middle ground. Evelyn watched her daughters and son make their marks on the world and felt something shift. Pride. Yes, but also completion. The work of raising them was done. Now they were adults, making their own choices, living their own lives. We did it, she told Zar one evening, sitting on their porch, the memorial cairn visible through the trees. We raised 3 extraordinary children who somehow turned out to be good people despite everything. Because of everything, the struggles made them stronger, more empathetic. Do you have regrets about how it all happened? He took her hand, the gesture as natural now as breathing. I regret the people I killed, the pain I caused. I'll carry that forever, but regret us, our family, never. Even when protesters threw rocks at the house. Even then. Even when Lyra came home crying because someone called her abomination. Even then, because we taught her she's not, we gave her the strength to stand anyway. Evelyn leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his scales, the steady beat of his hearts. 20 years since that first day. 20 years of choosing each other, every day, every moment. I'm 66, she said softly. You're 237. We have maybe 20 more years together if we're lucky. Then we make them count. No more children, though. 3 is plenty. He laughed, agreed, though Hope did mention wanting siblings. Hope can get her own children when she's ready. They sat in comfortable silence as stars emerged overhead. The same stars that had witnessed war, that now witnessed peace. Fragile, hard-won, but real. Inside the house, lights glowed warm. Their home, their sanctuary, built on the ruins of grief and guilt and transformed into something beautiful. The memorial cairn stood silent witness. 12,000 stones, 12,000 reasons to choose differently, and they had, every day for 20 years, would continue choosing for whatever time remained. I love you, Evelyn said, simple words, but carrying weight of decades. I love you, Zar replied, always in all ways. And that was enough, more than enough, it was everything. The end of their story wasn't dramatic, wasn't world-changing, was simply 2 people who had found each other against impossible odds, built a family despite a universe conspiring against them, and proved that love, real love, transcends every boundary humans or Krellix had ever drawn. Their children would carry that legacy forward, would build their own bridges, make their own choices, live their own extraordinary lives. But tonight, sitting together under stars, Evelyn and Zar were just 2 people who had survived everything and come out the other side intact. Scarred, changed, but together. And that was the victory that mattered most. Not the grand gestures, not the political recognition, not the medical breakthroughs, but the quiet triumph of choosing love over hate, hope over despair, life over death. Every day, every moment, for 20 years and counting. Their story, written in stones and stars, and the laughter of children who should never have existed, but did. Because 2 broken people decided to heal together, instead of staying broken alone. And in the end, that made all the difference.